In competitive sport, every athlete faces this moment. It always begins with a single action. A missed shot, a bad pass, maybe a tactical error. It happens. And for that critical second, your mind just gets stuck, replaying what just happened. But here's the problem. The competition doesn't wait. And this is exactly how one mistake can turn into a negative spiral. So, in this explainer, we're going to cover why mistakes tend to linger mentally and what the brain's automatic reaction is. We'll look at the common trap of trying to just erase errors, and then I'll introduce a 3-step routine for a rapid reset. Finally, we'll talk about the mindset of high performers and give you an action plan you can use. Look, mistakes are an unavoidable part of any sport, but the mental carryover that follows them, that is avoidable. You see, the true performance cost of an error isn't the error itself. It's the delay in mental recovery. When you're lingering on a mistake, your attention is stuck in the past. Your emotions start to rise, your decision-making slows down, and your confidence takes a hit. The thing about elite athletes isn't that they make fewer mistakes. It's that they recover from them much, much faster. So to understand how to recover, we first have to understand why mistakes hijack our attention in the first place. It all starts with an automatic response in the brain. So, 3 things happen in this sequence. First, the brain produces what's called an error detection spike. It basically flags the mistake as important. Second, we get what's called meaning overload, where we start linking that one error to our identity or to the final outcome. And third, all this leads to attentional fixation, where our focus just stays on what just happened instead of on what's next. This scenario here shows the direct impact. A striker misses a huge opportunity, and instead of re-engaging right away, he's replaying it in his head. What happens? Well, his attention is divided, and he arrives a step late to the next defensive action. The performance cost comes directly from that divided attention. You know, the common advice is always to just forget about it or move on. But trying to suppress the thought of a mistake actually makes the problem worse. Trying not to think about something actually keeps it mentally active. This is called suppression, and it tends to backfire. A much more effective strategy is brief acknowledgement. Just simply noting the error without judgment reduces its emotional intensity. And that's what creates the mental space you need for a reset.
Steph Curry is a perfect example of this. After a missed shot, he reacts neutrally. You don't see a big emotional display. He immediately shifts his attention forward to his next action, like getting into the right defensive position. His control is always focused on what's next.
So the solution isn't to avoid mistakes, but to have a plan for when they happen. And this plan needs to be a simple, repeatable routine. In this process, speed matters a lot more than perfection. A strong reset routine has 3 components. First, a physical reset. This could be a controlled exhale, adjusting your posture, or some kind of sharp movement. Second, a verbal cue, just a single pre-chosen word like next, reset, or here. And third, an external focus, an immediate shift of your attention to the ball, an opponent, or your role in the very next play. Let me give you an example. A young goalkeeper was really struggling after conceding goals, letting one error lead to another. So he adopted this 5-second reset routine. After a goal, he'd take a deep breath out, he'd touch both goalposts, and then he'd say his verbal cue, next ball. That simple sequence was enough to stop the mental carryover. Now, a routine is critical, but it works best when it's supported by a mental shift. This involves changing the meaning of a mistake itself. I want you to start viewing a mistake not as a signal of failure, but as a signal of engagement. It means you're active, you're taking risks, you're trying to make an impact. You know, passive athletes, they make fewer errors, but they also have far less influence on the game. Here's a key principle. When your confidence drops after a mistake, the fastest way to repair it is through action, not through thinking. For instance, a basketball player who turns the ball over can stabilize their confidence by immediately sprinting back on defense. Their immediate action anchors their belief, not the mistake that just happened. Okay, let's make this practical. Here's how you can prepare a plan for your next mistake, and we'll break it down into 3 phases. The work actually begins before you even compete. First, expect mistakes to happen. Accept them as part of the process. Second, prepare your specific physical and verbal reset routine. And third, choose your personal cue word. Then, during competition, it's all about executing the plan. When an error happens, you acknowledge it briefly, without judgment. You immediately use your physical reset, and then you consciously shift your attention to the next action.
After the competition is over, your approach needs to be disciplined. Review your mistakes, but only do it once. From that review, pull out one clear, actionable lesson. Then you make a conscious decision to let go of replaying those errors in your mind.
Mistakes are unavoidable moments, but whether you allow them to affect the next moment, that carryover, that's a choice. This process gives you the tools to make that choice effectively. To get started, I want you to reflect on this question. What kind of mistake is the hardest for you to reset from? Knowing your personal trigger, that's the first step toward mastering your response.